It's been in the news a lot recently, so let's talk about it. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. You've heard the debates. Some see it as a vehicle of progress. Others call it unfair, biased, even discriminatory. And I'm not here to defend or change your mind about DEI itself. I just want to strip away the branding and drama around it and give you honest facts and data about one of the main problems it aims to tackle, which is unequal employment opportunity. I only want to give you more context about the root of the issue. After that, you can judge DEI however you want. So let's start with what we can all agree on. First, we don't want unqualified people in jobs they can't handle. You don't, I don't. We also don't want anyone having an unfair advantage over someone else just because of their race, gender, or any other identity marker. Speaking as a black guy who's talked to black people, white people, everybody in between, we're actually all in agreement about those issues. Black people don't want jobs just because they're black. They don't want pity prizes or handouts because they're self-sufficient and they have pride. Getting a job based solely or even largely on their race or gender makes them feel like they and their work are devalued. And white people rightly don't want to get passed up for job opportunities just because preference was given to someone else simply based on them being a minority. We all want a fair shot. We are all for meritocracy, fairness, and against discrimination. I think everyone watching this video would agree with those principles and values. But now, let's dig a little deeper and figure out, is hiring actually fair? If we totally got rid of DEI tomorrow, will we already have a meritocracy? Let's look at the data. Researchers have tested this by using resume experiments where they send out identical applications with only one difference, the name at the top. They usually do this instead of sending real people because it prevents differences in speech, body language, or confidence influencing results. So the only thing that's different is how a name is perceived. This isolates racial bias in hiring decisions with scientific precision. In a 2004 study, researchers sent resumes to Chicago and Boston employers where white-sounding names got 50% more callbacks than black-sounding names. From this same study, for low-quality resumes, white names had an 8.5% callback rate, jumping to 10.8% for high-quality resumes. Identical resumes with black names went from a 6.2% callback rate for low-quality resumes to 6.7% for high-quality resumes, which shows that working hard to be more qualified doesn't necessarily translate the same for all groups. In Milwaukee in 2003, researchers had black and white guys go in person to apply for entry-level jobs with perfectly matched fake credentials. They instructed half of the participants to disclose a nonviolent drug offense. White men with no record were twice as likely to get a callback. White guys with a drug charge were still more likely to get a callback than a black guy with a clean slate. At this point, you might be thinking, but that was 20 years ago. And that's a fair point. Except a 2017 meta-analysis looked at 28 similar studies from 1989 to 2015 and found that on average, white people got 36% more callbacks than black people and 24% more than Latinos. They found that there has been no change in anti-black hiring bias over that period, and controlling for education, gender, job type didn't prevent this trend. And if that's too long ago for you, a study that came out last year in 2024, where thousands of resumes were sent to 97 Fortune 500 companies, black applicants got 24% fewer callbacks than white ones at companies with the worst discrimination grades, and there was a 3% gap at companies with the best discrimination grades. Now, we are all aware of the increasing use of AI in screening job applicants, but AI doesn't prevent this issue as it has all of our biases baked into it. Another study that was published last year showed that AI resume screeners picked white-sounding names 85% of the time and 100% of the time when it came to choosing between only black versus white male names. But using names as a racial proxy may underestimate bias because names alone do not fully capture racial identity. There is no such thing as white-only names or black-only names, but even with that limitation, the results are clear. There is a consistent, measurable disadvantage for black applicants before they even step into the room. Also, unsurprisingly, there is plenty of data that shows similar trends for women and other minority groups. These studies focus only on resume stage discrimination, but there are other stages of employment that bias or discrimination can show up, like salary negotiations and workplace treatment, which for the sake of time, I won't go into, but the data is out there. And it's not just human or algorithmic bias holding back meritocracy. Sometimes it's simply who you know. A 2023 study shows that about 1 in 3 Americans ends up working where their parent did before turning 30. And those folks make around 20% more than people without those connections, often benefiting white men from well-off families. And a 2023 staffing survey showed that 77% of companies prioritize personal connections over skill sets when making hiring decisions, with 68% of highly qualified candidates being overlooked in favor of those with better personal connections or networks. Many jobs are never advertised and instead filled through referrals. And since networks are generally racially homogenous, this perpetuates exclusion of many minority groups. In other words, nepotism is something we all kind of just accept as normal, but its effects are ones often associated with the negative consequences of DEI. So now that we know what the data says, we can all at least agree that there is an issue, whether or not you think DEI is a solution. If you don't want someone getting a leg up over you simply because of their race, we agree. We all want a meritocracy, but that just isn't the current status quo. There is a long history of racial discrimination in this country, and biases don't just fade because time passes. That is what DEI attempts to address. If you think it's doing it the wrong way, fine, but we can all agree that there is a problem. If we really want a meritocracy, we have to take active steps to ensure that employment opportunities are fair for everyone. And fighting over DEI's optics misses the real issue, which is unfair systems that predate it. You can hate DEI, love it, whatever. I'm not selling it, but we can't deny that there's a problem it's attempting to solve. If you found this video helpful or informational, please share with somebody you think the information would benefit. Here are all the sources I referenced in this video, and as always, please fact check me, put your thoughts in the comment section. And remember, the purpose of these videos is to promote informed conversations. So get to talking. Thanks.